Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Ask Me Anything. This is the video series where Lunloop subscribers can ask me anything about markets, trading, or life, or markets, trading, and life. Mix them, match them. I don't care. I'll take whatever questions you have. This week we have a question not just from a Lunloop subscriber, but from a Lunloop subscriber who is also a licensed clinical psychologist. So the pressure is on. I better come up with a good answer to this question. Well, in this case, questions, because it's a two-parter. All right, first part, looking over your decades of being in the market as an investor, what has the experience of investing taught you about who you are as a person? Second part, what lessons about yourself has the market and investing taught you over the years? Great questions. Okay, as always, I'm just going to be super raw and super honest here. And also, as always, I'm going to go over here for a little bit. I'm probably going to come over here and then maybe go over there, but I promise you, I'm going to bring it home. So just hang with me. I have a belief that 90 to 95% of the arguments and the debates and the discussions people have these days, whether it's online or in person, are not about what they purport to be. For example, somebody is debating somebody else about Ukraine. I believe that the dynamics in that debate and that argument have more to do with someone not getting picked for the varsity football team in high school, or the mean girls being mean to the person in junior high, or one or both parents being dysfunctional. The debate's really not about Ukraine and Russia. It's about being validated. It's about being heard. It's about being right. It's power dynamics. It's pushing back at perceived power structures and playing out roles of victimization. Everything except the issue. This also comes up when you have somebody that is complaining about this, that, the other, or complaining about their lives. Oh, I can't get a job because X, Y, and Z. This is also why there is no amount of information and no amount of data you can give the person that you're debating or arguing with, or the person that's complaining, that makes them go, oh, I didn't know that. You solved my problem. Or, oh, I didn't know that. I've changed my mind. Again, because it's not about the issue. It's about all these underlying dynamics. Let me give you a stupid and benign illustration of how this might play out. Let's say you go to get a new car and you take your brand new girlfriend with you. And as soon as you walk in, the salesperson comes over and says, hey, I got this great car for you. And they take you over to this car, and it's this amazing, beautiful car. And salesperson's telling you why this is the cool car everyone has right now and why you should have this car. And let's go sign your name to the dotted line and buy this car. In a perfect world, in a world where we were self-aware, self-confident, we would be able to say, hey, I love this car. I just can't afford it, right? But instead, what happens often is we're like, oh, I don't want to be embarrassed in front of my new girlfriend, or I don't want the salesperson to think that I can't afford it. So instead, what do? We say, I love this car. In fact, I would buy this car right now, except for one thing, those striped seats. I hate striped seats. Sorry. So we look for other cars for 30 minutes or so, and we're just about ready to leave. And what happens? Salesperson comes over and says, hey, remember that car over there? Remember that car you love, the one you said you would buy today, except for those striped seats? Just talk to my manager. We can swap those seats out for anything you want, right? Now, if the striped seats were really the issue, that would solve it right there. But the striped seats are not the issue, right? So what do? You go, oh, well, and then there's another, there's always another reason to dig in and just hold on to your position, hold on to your issues, whatever. This is all a result of family of origin. Things that you did when you were a child, usually adaptations that you needed to do to survive, that now still exist in your life, but you're not aware of them. So I'll give you another example. So say you're a kid, 7 years old, 9 years old, 15, whatever, and you've got two parents that always criticize you. Everything you do, they criticize you. Every hope you have, every dream you have, everything you try to accomplish, they're always constantly criticizing you. So what do? You create an adaptation for survival. And that adaptation is you close yourself off, right? You don't share your thoughts. You don't share your emotions. You don't share parts of yourself, because every time you put those out there, they get stomped on and it's painful and you don't want to do that. So you hold them in. You don't know you're doing this because you're just 8 or you're 13 or you're 15, but it is a survival adaptation and it makes sense. All right, so here's what happens. You grow up, you go to college, you move out, you start a career, you meet a partner, you get married, you raise a family, and now it's 25 years later and your parents are dead and you and your wife are about ready to be divorced. And why? Because your wife says, you don't communicate with me. You don't share your emotions. I don't know what's going on with you, right? Your adaptation, right, keeping the cards close to your vest to protect yourself, has now turned into a maladaptation. The reasons for having that adaptation no longer exist. You don't need to do it anymore. But the problem is, nobody shoots a flare off and says, hey, you can drop your adaptations now before they become maladaptations. And even if they did, we live with these things for so long that they become a part of us. And sometimes we just don't want to drop them. Also, you got to be aware of them. So first you have to be self-aware that you have these maladaptations. Once you have them, you have to be willing to work on them. And then you've got to do the work to, solve them or get rid of them. All right, what does all of this have to do with the market? The market has an amazing ability to distill out and crystallize all of your psychological issues, all of your maladaptations. I'll give you an example. You are in a stock and you have a thesis, a technical thesis, a fundamental thesis, and you think the stock's going to go to the moon. It's going to make you a lot of money. And then just the opposite happens. It starts to break down. You start losing money. All right. If it was just about that stock, right, it would be simple. You go, oh, you know what? It's breaking down. Broke my moving average, broke a support level. Fundamental thesis doesn't work anymore. Sell it. No big deal. But if you have a need to be right because of an adaptation you had when you were a child that's now a maladaptation, selling that stock would be admitting you're wrong. So you dig in and you create other reasons why you can hold on to that stock, right? Maybe that stock being profitable is a validation. Maybe you need validation to compensate for an adaptation that has now become a maladaptation. The point is, there are so many different ways that the market can pinpoint and really hone in on those things where you are the most vulnerable. So we go back to that first question. What has the experience of investing taught you about who you are as a person? It has taught me that, and maladaptation is a charitable way of describing this because you don't know that you have the issue. A less charitable way of describing it would be emotional immaturity, right? Your emotions have not evolved. The difference between those two things is subtle, but at some point in our lives, I believe, if we're adults, we have to look at the results of these maladaptations, even if we don't know what they are, and say, that's not working. That's not working. Why isn't it working? Right? We have to have enough courage to say, why isn't that working? And then kind of reverse engineer and figure out, oh, it's a maladaptation there, right? So I would say that the market has the experience of investing is what it's taught me about who I am, is that I am someone that still has maladaptations. I'm someone that still has emotional immaturity. I say still has, I think I started figuring this out about 20 years ago, and I've been working on it, and I'm constantly working on it. The second part is, what lessons about yourself has the market and investing taught you over the years? Well, the lesson is related to that emotional immaturity and to those maladaptions. The lesson is you always have to be vigilant on these things. You always have to be self-aware. You have to be rooting these things out. I always say you can't go to the gym once and work out and then be in shape for the rest of your life. And the process of finding, solving, healing your maladaptions, the process of going from being emotionally immature to emotionally mature, it's never ending, right? It's a constant process. You always have to be on guard because it can slip. It's like an onion. You peel back layers of the onion, go, there's the onion, but then there's always other layers. Now, having said that, it's a real balance. And this is another thing it's taught me, because I don't want to be, I don't want to be hypercritical of myself. I don't want to always be second guessing myself. I don't want to always be like this every minute of the day. But I also want to be aware. I also want to be thoughtful. I want to recognize and work on those things, those maladaptions that aren't helping my life. So it's this balance, right? There's a little bit of distance that you need to create there. And there's this meditation app called Headspace, and they gave one of the best descriptions I've ever heard about the difference in that space. In one scenario, you're standing in a storm and it's raining and there's thunder and it's lightning and wind and it's cold and it's really uncomfortable, right? In another scenario, you're inside a house with a large picture window looking at the storm. So you're still observing it. You're still seeing what's happening, but there's enough distance between you and the storm that you can observe it objectively, right? So you're not right in it, but you're observing it, right? The other analogy that they use is that when these maladaptions come up, when these thoughts come up, you don't try to suppress them. You don't try to act like they're not there. You acknowledge them and then you let them go, right? Or you acknowledge them and you figure out, okay, how can I approach this in a different way, in a better way? And you let them go. And they say it's like taking a feather off of a crystal glass, right? You just, okay, I acknowledge it and I let it go. So just to recap, what the experience about investing has taught me about who I am as a person. I'm a human being with issues that I've dealt with, that I still am dealing with, and ones that I will probably discover and have to deal with. And then, what lessons about yourself has the market taught you? It's that you always got to be vigilant, you always have, and you just can't be afraid, you just can't be afraid to look at yourself honestly. I think that was probably my biggest issue growing up, is that I wasn't honest with myself about what was working and what wasn't. But in the market, you can't ignore that. If you don't have a process, if your maladaptions are affecting the way you are investing or trading, you can't ignore it, because you'll see it in your P&L, right? And this is how people blow up accounts. It sucks, but it's true. So anyway, hopefully that answered your questions. If you are a Lund Loop subscriber and you've got a question, shoot me the question at Brian, BRIAN, @thelundloop.com. I'll see you next time.